Welcome to another Sunday morning conversation, everybody. Today, my guest is Becca Zajac, and she's the executive director of Dragonfly Trails out in Columbus, Georgia. So today, we're going to talk about where they're at now with the trails, their expansion, and how she's going to tie the whole city together with them. So thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Hey Eric,
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Another day in the life.
Good. Sorry I was a few minutes late. I was trying to get, you're a triathlete?
Yes, I am.
I was trying to get my brick in before this.
I haven't been training as much as I used to, but I have to start picking my training back up again because I'm doing Roth next year.
Oh, no way. What location? Oh, wait. Is Roth only in one location and is Challenge a bunch of locations?
Challenge Family is the triathlon company, and
Like
Roth
the
is the
governing
premier
body. Yeah.
race. Yeah, it's their
Okay.
Ironman.
Okay. Yeah, that's the one. I feel like Lucy Charles Barclay and her husband are always like kind of the spokespeople of, because it's in Europe, right?
It's in Germany.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
it's kind of it used to be Ironman Europe, and then Challenge took it over 20 years ago, and it's like a huge race, like 250,000 spectators, 6,000 triathletes racing. So it's a big thing.
Do you have to qualify for it?
No, it's a lottery.
Oh, okay, cool. What month is it in?
June, so I got a year. Oh, it's what, 11
Oh,
months.
yeah, you got plenty of time.
Yeah, I know. So you are also a triathlete?
Yeah, I'm training for my big one this year is World's Half in Utah in October, and then I'll run the half in Michigan in early September. And I think that's all I'm doing. I had a full on the calendar, but I'm like trained out this year. Like I'm going to barely make it till October. So,
No, I get it. And the full that's the thing about me coming out of the Ironman retirement home. I haven't done one since 2017. And it's like I had my full then. It's like, well, I'll come out for this one. But
yeah.
it's such a huge time commitment. And
Yeah. And it's always like, I don't know how competitive you are, but it's like that balance between like, are you there to finish? Because if you just want to finish, it's like, it's, you
yeah,
need to, but like if you want to be competitive, then you really got to amp up your training.
yeah, it's like, are you there to compete or complete?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So, I mean, I would like to compete, but I mean, I know I'm not going to win an age group or anything like that. Or
Yeah, it's well, and men, I'm just looking at you, guessing your age. I mean, you guys have like one of the harder or hardest age groups. So
yes, I am 37.
yeah, yeah, you're right there. It's like disposable income, lots of free time. If they have kids, they're older, probably somewhere in the middle to end of their working career. So they have good, flexible jobs, like all the elements to make for a great trainer.
The funny thing is, mine is a really unique situation because I got hit by a car in 2017, and I tried to go back to work, but I was unable to. So I'm actually on disability, so I have a lot of time to train,
Oh,
and I don't have kids or a wife. So it's like I've got a cat right here. That just so if I wanted to, I could train all the time, but
who? I mean,
nobody
unless you
really wants to do that.
I was like, I don't know, even if you get paid to do that, if that's enjoyable. We we do a like a like almost like an amateur tour once annually. It's just cycling, and to live like a professional athlete to train for it and then live like a professional athlete for a week is like miserable to me. It's miserable. I was like, oh, I'd love that life. I'm like, no, I wouldn't.
Yeah, people are all telling me all the time, like, "Oh man, you got it made. You could do this." I'm like, it's not really that. It's not what you think it is.
Yeah, exactly. So are you physically able to do all of the disciplines?
Yeah, my disability is a brain injury.
Oh no. Wow. Oh, that's tough. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, I'm sorry.
it's not your fault. It's okay. But yeah, my biggest problems are cognitive and vision. So
Yeah. Yep. So are you still able to drive a car?
yeah, they don't really like me doing it, but I do.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm in Atlanta. I don't have a choice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. At least Atlanta has some basic transportation options, though, if in it, in a jam when you needed to. Whereas, like, if you lived in, I don't know, some smaller city, I mean, public transportation is awful.
Well, public transportation is awful here. I mean, I would love for MARTA to go everywhere, but it does not.
Yeah, yeah, good.
And
All
our
right, so, oh, go ahead.
and our paths and trails are not like yours. I've seen the maps of yours. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. You can really get around on the Dragonfly trails. Um,
So yes, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, I love hearing that. I think we still have a lot of work to do. So the same folks that actually work on the Beltline, which I'm sure you've heard of, the Path Foundation,
yes.
and maybe the engineering team is called Kaizen Collaborative. They're actually the ones that came to Columbus in early 2017, and sort of looked at our city and our county and said, okay, you guys have these two great trails that are existing. One's the Riverwalk, one's the Fall Line Trace. Both are about just shy of 15 miles, between 10 and 15. And they said, if you can connect these and then build, you've really got a strong network here. And so that's what we've done, and that's what we'll continue to do. So that master plan that they made was 65 miles, and we are at 33 right now. And just as we're building, there's a development that happens, 2 blocks over from our master plan, and they're like, hey, can you connect it 2 blocks? And we're like, absolutely. That's another destination we want to connect to. Or now I don't know how familiar you are with Columbus geographically, but basically the Chattahoochee River separates Columbus, Georgia, and Phoenix City, Alabama. So Phoenix City has a small river walk, and they've sort of gotten in on the action, and they want to, well, in partnership with us, they want to extend their trail system, and we want to start connecting that to Columbus more than where it's connected already, and then really grow it on the Alabama side. So really, Dragonfly trails will start to be multi-state, ideally.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the maps, it's so neat how it's so integrated so far.
Yeah. One of the things I've learned about trail planning is you've really got to have connectivity, like physically connected trails, because if you have trails that just go in the middle of nowhere, people are not as likely to use them. They just are not getting them to where they need to be. So they get halfway on a beautiful, safe trail, and then the other half of the way is walking next to, high volume traffic, or riding your bike in, a 2-lane kind of situation where it's just not a pleasant or really safe environment. So I'm really proud of the fact that all of our trails as of today are connected. So if you step on your foot, if you start in North Columbus, you can get all the way, south to Fort Benning. You can go east to Midtown Columbus. You can go all over the place because they are all connected. And that's really our goal, is to really build off of that, like, spider web that we have now, and make sure that we are just making connections to, like, our main kind of heart and soul of our trail system. And that's something that's really unique. I mean, our trail system is very urban. It is very much intentionally built where people live, where people want to go. So it is very residential. It's connecting to places like the Chattahoochee River, which in Columbus, that's sort of where our downtown is, that has lots of restaurants and retail. But we make an effort to connect to museums and to connect to schools and grocery stores. I mean, these similar to problems all over the country, but in Georgia, and specifically in Columbus, we're dealing with neighborhoods not having access, basically food deserts where they don't have access to grocery stores. The trails are a really affordable, because they're free, way for people to get to the places that they need to go. They don't have to rely on our public transportation system in Columbus doesn't have routes everywhere. It doesn't have enough regularity and enough density, I guess you could say, to accommodate the size of our 200,000 people that live in our county. So if we can sort of substitute trails where some of the areas were lacking public transportation, it really makes a difference. So in Columbus, our trails are certainly used for transportation as much as recreation. You'll always see bikers and runners and walkers, but a lot of folks use them, especially our trails that are in neighborhoods, use them to walk to school, to walk to their doctor's appointments, to ride their bike, to work, etc.
Now, you mentioned the Beltline earlier because of the path. Um, the Beltline has, I don't know if it has a problem of where they wanted to have low income housing around it, but
Yep.
that pretty much went out the window, and the rent prices have went out of control around the Beltline. Do you have that same issue with your area?
Yeah. So gentrification is definitely something that we are very aware of, and we're fortunate to have the Beltline kind of go through those struggles first. So right now, our system is not quite is not there, and frankly we're trying to make sure it doesn't get there. What we'd actually love to see, and the Beltline has done an incredible job of this, is, I mean, there's not a piece of property along the Beltline that hasn't had some economic development interest or development, and that's really, we'd actually love to see more of that on our trails. Our trails are not, the Beltline, from my understanding, has sort of this concept or idea that, I mean, they are really as much building trails as they are developing the economy in Atlanta. Our system's a little different. We are building trails, and we are secondarily hoping and working with economic developers to get some more development on our trails. But I would say the Riverwalk, which is sort of our linear north-south trail, that's the one that we've seen the most development on. So in 25 years, there's been about 55, no, that's wrong, sorry, almost $1 billion of development over the last 25 years on the Riverwalk. Most of that is kind of business, university, a little bit of residential. We haven't had the same issues that the Beltline is dealing with housing. It is something that could happen in Columbus. Certainly it hasn't. We don't, from what we're seeing, it's not indicating that it will, but it's certainly a possibility. But we are just, trail systems all function differently. I think, the Beltline, again, is very economic development heavy. Right now, Columbus's Beltline is, or excuse me, Columbus's Dragonfly Trail is very much about connecting people and places. Like, we are trying to just get a network that is easy for people to access and safe. And then we're hoping that the development, which we have seen, but the development will come every year a little bit more. But right now it's not been an issue. But again, it's something that we are aware of, and we want to make sure that we're protecting the neighborhoods and the people that have built the neighborhoods and have lived there for 50 or 100 years. I mean, we want to be very cautious about that.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point that trails function differently. I actually live closer to the Comet than I do to the Beltline, and I know that they are definitely two different functions.
Yeah, I haven't been on the Silver Comet Trail, but I mean, that's really a trail that it sounds like is more recreationally, like people get on it in Atlanta, and they sort of, I think there's like an overnight trip you can do, or it's more recreational, correct?
It's very long. I mean, you could take it. It's 60 miles out to the Alabama border, and then there's like another 40 miles you can do in Alabama. So it can go for a long time.
Yeah, and I would say, just broadly, I think the Dragonfly Trail system is somewhere in between the Beltline and the Silver Comet Trail, because the Silver Comet is maybe goes through some rural areas, I would assume.
Very.
Yeah, and where our trails are, they're very urban. I mean, you can pretty much get to a restroom, a gas station, any sort of thing, a grocery store if you needed to, you can get to those things pretty easy. It's not too rural at all, maybe for just a few miles here and there.
Yeah, the Silver Comet's great for cycling, but I would assume yours is very much geared towards running rather than cycling.
We actually have a ton of cyclists. So I think runners and cyclists and walkers all kind of work together, like actually work together and fit together on our trail. They're not overcrowded. Cyclists, there are certain spots in our trail system that are just more congested than the other. Our downtown one right on the river, if you're a cyclist, if you're what I would call like a serious road biker, somebody who's wearing a kit and has maybe like a power meter or a computer, you're avoiding that area because you can't move fast through there. But we're extremely fortunate. South of us is Fort Benning, and so our trail system connects to Fort Benning. We work with Fort Benning very regularly, but their head of public works, he helped design the system of trails on Fort Benning. So our trail system connects to not only their trails, but their campus. And I mean, there's hundreds of miles of wide open roads and trails for, more serious cyclists to kind of start on our trail. And then if you want a 100-mile ride, you can go all the way to Fort Benning. If you want a 20-mile ride, you can easily do that on the Dragonfly trails. But yeah, there's just like sort of a balance as if you live here, you travel here, you kind of learn, okay, maybe on a Saturday morning between 10 and 2, you probably want to be on your like cruiser or something that's slow. But if you're here before 9, if you're on the trails before 9 a.m., I mean, you can absolutely take a road bike. Joggers will be out there, runners. We're really lucky to just have like kind of the right amount of trail users right now.
Yeah. So what exactly is your role with the Dragonfly Trails?
So the Dragonfly Trails is a nonprofit. It started back in conceptually 2015. It actually became a nonprofit and got a board in 2017. It was run by kind of just civic leaders in our community who were really inspired to move this idea along. They built a trail in, I think, 2018, maybe one in 2019, and then it sort of like other things came up, and the Dragonfly Trails really needed somebody dedicated to it full time. And so they hired an executive director. That's what I do. That's my position. And I do a little bit of everything. So no day is the same for me. I fundraise, I market, I activate the trails, do lots of public art installations, manage the build out of our construction. I work very closely with our contractors who are actually building the trails, as well as the city, who we have kind of like a public-private partnership with. A little bit of everything. I work with the regional planning commission to just make sure our trails are lining up with other projects in the region. Yeah, you name it. Some days I'm out on the trails cleaning them. Some days I'm, reporting broken lights. It just depends on whatever we need. So
Did you already live in Columbus, or did they bring you in?
I did live in Columbus. So I had worked before this for a nonprofit called Uptown Columbus. They do a lot of the event programming and economic development in our downtown core.
Okay. Now, what kind of art installation do you do? I know the Beltline has generally odd stuff, more contemporary type stuff. What is your type of art?
We are just sort of starting on some projects, but what we've done so far is last month we erected a mural on the side of the A.J. McClung YMCA. That particular YMCA is right on the trail, and so it had 3 kind of figures of people who are really prominent from Columbus. So A.J. McClung, he was the first Black director of a YMCA. Obviously, that YMCA is his namesake. We had Alma Thomas, who is an incredibly accomplished artist, and has really has a piece of her work is in like the Obama's collection, or actually, excuse me, in the White House collection. Ma Rainey, who is the like kind of mother of blues. She was born and raised here, traveled the world as a blues artist. In, I don't want to say the years because I can't remember, but and then came back to Columbus, ran our Black theater at the time, and actually passed away here. So really inspirational figures were kind of up on that mural. Right now, I could send you this too. We're working on an underpass. If you've ever been to Birmingham, they have a underpass that's illuminated with lights. We have again, not knowing Columbus, we sort of have a downtown area called Uptown, and then we have a very residential area called Midtown. And that connection between there is very industrial. It has an underpass under it. It's very, it's just dark and dingy, and the perception is it's unsafe. we put a trail through there last summer, and then we are taking out all of the lights, putting these bright LED multicolor lights that could be rainbow, they could be red and green for Christmas, they could be Auburn colors during the Auburn, Georgia football weekend, whatever you want them to be. We are putting murals all over the place in there. So right now, kind of murals, lighting installations has been our MO. We've done some public, really kind of like pop-up exhibitions with the local artists about different things. So we did sort of a racial injustice piece back in 2020. We did the history of the Chattahoochee River, and we just kind of have this huge retaining wall that we can put what are giant industrial stickers up, but they have art on them and people go past them. We're working with some sculptors right now. We're also working with a permaculturist on some landscaping public art, which is going to be sort of interesting, but that's where we're at right now. Again, like as an organization, our main focus is on building trails, but you not only need to physically connect people, but you've got to have people connect with each other right on the trails. One of the great ways to do that is through public art. And again, the Beltline has public art, you know, I don't know, all over the place, and it's very aspirational for us to have that quantity. You know, we just have probably 5 or 6 pieces, and we'd love to have more. So we're working on that. But again, it's Dragonfly Trails is just sort of, I started with the trails in 2019 and at the end of 2019. So we're just kind of dealing, like during COVID, it was really hard to do some activation stuff, but we're just sort of starting as an organization to build and do more of that kind of work.
So what's your timetable for completion of the rest of the trails? Because like I know the Beltline's kind of dragging ass just for different reasons, but I mean, it's going to take like 15, 20 years, I figure, till they're all done.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to say, to give an actual timeline that is of any significance. The reality is all of it is dependent on funding. If we raised $50 million or $100 million in the next, you know, year, we could say like, oh, we'll have it done in 5 years. But it's very much a funding, it's at the rate of the funding. But the T-SPLOST, which is a transportation special option local sales tax, which means 1 penny of every transaction that happens in Muskogee County goes into this transportation fund. We have like 4 or 5 massive projects that were funded through that we just found out in May. So that's really good. And then, you know, right now we have two trails that are each about a mile, mile and a half, fully funded, ready to bid, ready to build. So, you know, each trail takes from literally conception to design to engineering to city council approval to funding to bidding to finding your contractor to building it out. I mean, that whole process is like, you know, easily 2.5 years. It is not a quick process by any means.
Yeah, I guess that gives you a lot of time to do other things in the meantime.
Yeah, and just like any construction project, I mean, there are just things that, you know, you have something totally 100% ready to go, and then you look at it one more time and you're like, oh, we should tinker with this. And so then you know, take 3 steps back. I mean, that's just very common. And because the trails are on public right of way, but they're also on private property, sometimes working with stakeholders and property owners can challenge things. I mean, sometimes you have to buy land, sometimes you have to you know, get easements and things like that. So it's just it's a slower process, but it's absolutely worth it.
So I'll get you out of here on this one. What's your favorite part of the existing trails? What part do you like the most?
You mean like a section of the trail?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really good question. I think currently there's so because we have a very urban trail system, I love that aspect of it, but there are 2 sections, one on the Fall Line Trace, one on the Riverwalk, that for a very short period of time, you don't see any sort of like park or restaurant or bathroom or anything, and you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, and you don't realize that, you know, you're 5 miles from downtown Columbus and every single amenity, or 5 miles from Fort Benning. So I really love those portions, but I think when we finish this underpass, this public art underpass project, I think that's going to be the best. I mean, to just have this really incredibly vibrant space on the trail, it's, you know, it's something we haven't seen. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks for giving me time today, Becca. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I hope I'll see you at a race someday or
I
down
do
in
a lot.
Columbus.
I do a lot of them, so I mean, I'll be around.
Nice. Yeah. If you're ever, Columbus has tons of them. So if you're down here, let me know and we can grab a cup of coffee or something.
Yeah, I have meaning to do one of those Tri Columbus races, but I have just it's never fit into my schedule. Like I like to travel for mine to all over the East Coast, and eventually I'm gonna stop traveling when I run out of hotel points and just stick semi-local.
Yeah.
I when I used to be able to work, I was an architect and a consultant, so I was traveling all the time. And if you play your cards right with different credit cards, you can rack up points on Sky Miles, hotel points. So I amassed quite a war chest that I still have. Like, oh, my Hilton honors, I have at least 17 nights worth of Hampton Inns,
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
and I have enough Sky Miles and then some to take me and my mom both over to Roth next year.
Nice.
So once I run out of all that stuff, I'm going semi-local. Basically, anywhere from Augusta to Columbus to Chattanooga, anywhere, 2 hour radius of Atlanta.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Well, whenever that day comes, reach back out and we can go on a ride or grab some coffee or whatever you want to do.
Great. Thanks again, Becca.
See ya.